Okay, I'm going to do a little review with you before we launch into 3.2 worksheet number 2. The review stuff goes like this. You should recognize this. This is the basic formula for a what? Exponential. Now this is a specific formula for a situation. Tell me one thing you know about it. Raise your hand. Yes, sir. Starting value is 5. Perfect. What else you got? Yes? Growth of 8%. Good. If you were to graph this thing, would you agree that it would look something like this, although the steepness is a question mark? Okay. And then this spot right here is at what? At 5. All right. Now, if I give you a graph and say, here is its starting point of 3, and this is another spot at 8, 4, by now this should be really easy. A, B to the x. What's the A? 3. What's the B? Well, I don't know, but I can figure it out by putting in the y and the x from what? The 8, 4. And then you solve it, and you'd find b. All right, once you know b, and let's say b comes out to 1.07, then you know it's y equals 3 times 1.07 to the x. And then you could answer the question, what if x was 10? You could stick a 10 in there. Don't talk now, please. All right. So that's just a quick review of how to do that kind. Now we're going to do something just like that, except for the basic logistic function. That's this kind. I think you know by now that that's like a limit of 10, and so therefore the function would have a 10 on the top of it. Okay, so if they tell you that, that's, that'll help. There's another thing that they'll tell you is like a point. Let's say this is like 5, looks like it's about 4. So let's say there's a point on this basic logistic function. Do you get where I'm going to go with this? Just like the other kind, you had to figure out the equation. Now we have to figure out the equation for this kind. All right, so everybody start by writing out what you think you know about the equation so far. It starts with y equals. Okay, do you remember that the limit's on top and therefore there had to be a 10 on top? Raise your hand if you had that part right. Good. Underneath that, do you remember it's always 1 plus? You remember that? Okay, if you hadn't remembered that, make sure you write it down now. And then this is a b to the x. Sometimes do we use e in there? Yes, but the b could be e, but it doesn't have to be. All right, so we stick in that same ab to the x thing that we used to use. We put it in right there. Okay, now we can solve for this again. Now here's a really important point. Some of you aren't going to listen to this and therefore will not do well on this, because it will not work. If you try to take this starting value, let's say there's a starting value of 1, okay, and you try to put that 1 right in here for the a, it does not work. It won't work. Don't do that, okay, because would you agree that this is the spot 0, 1? Would you agree with that? Okay, then we need to stick in the point 0, 1. Okay, I'm back with you. We need to put in this point 0, 1 to tell us the a. The other kind would always work out just beautifully, naturally. You could just stick the number in for a. This kind, it will not work. The answer will not be 1 for a starting value, actually. Okay, this 0, 1 goes in for x is 0 and y is 1. Do you get how that's going to work out nice? Because this b to the 0 is going to turn into a 1. The 5, 4 will be used later. You have to do the a first. You have to find the a first. The a you know is related to the 0, 1, but you can't just put the 1 in here. All right, so right now, instead of just looking and squinting at the board, write what I have written, and you should have 1 equals 10 over 1 plus a, and then do you really have to put b to the 0? No, because b to the 0 is equal to 1, right? Now that is algebra. You have to solve algebra to be able to handle precalc. So solve that. Get a alone. Your first step is there's a fraction. Anytime you see a fraction, clear the fraction. Get the fraction out of this problem. If you have forgotten how, watch. Here's how you start, and then you need to do it from there. I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 plus a. That will clear the fraction. Then you can solve for a. One plus a equals 10. Therefore, a equals 9. Raise your hand if you had that. Okay, good. Do you get that a was not 1? A was actually 9. Okay, so now I can rewrite this formula up here, this formula right here, except it used to, all I knew was the top number was a 10. Now I know the top number is 10, and now I know a. What is a? Right here. It's 9. So I can put a 9 right here. Now I've got almost the whole formula. What letter do I need to find next? B. In order to find the b, that's what this point is for. Now you do the same exact process again. You stick in the 5 and the 4 into the x and the y and solve it again. Try it. Miss L, try this. Abby, you can do this. It'll go a lot better if you actually try one. What you should be doing right now is taking this formula right here and sticking in the point 5 comma 4 into the x and the y and then solving it. All right, so I'm going to put in the 5 for x, 5 goes there, the 4 for y, 4 goes there, and then I'm going to rewrite this puppy. All this work was from finding the a. Now that's done. Now I'm going to find the b. So I have 4 equals 10 over 1 plus 9b to the 5th. When you have a fraction, you should clear the fraction. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 plus 9b to the 5th. That will just simply cancel it on this side. On this side, I have to times by 1 plus 9b to the 5th. Now that 4 will get distributed. Do you get how that's... You can't just times the 4 by the first number. That wouldn't make any sense. Okay, so I've got 4 times 1 plus 9b to the 5th equals 10. Now, what's my goal here? What am I trying to find? B. So I got to get rid of all the other stuff. The first thing is you get this clump alone by getting rid of the 4. I'm personally going to divide by 4. If you multiplied the 4 into everything, it's okay, but you'll just have to do it a little bit differently. Now I have 1 plus 9b b to the 5th equals 10 fourths. I'm leaving it as 10. Oh, yeah, I can reduce that at least. 10 fourths is 5 over 2. There we go. All right, now, trying to get the b alone. Subtract 1, subtract 1. 9b to the 5th is equal to 5 halves minus 1. Well, 5 halves is really just 5 divided by 2, which is really 2.5. 2.5 minus 1 is 1.5. Also known as 3 over 2. So I'm going to do that, 3 over 2. 9b to the 5th equals 3 over 2. These are the ones where you're going to earn your A. It's if you can grind out all this algebra. Now I'm going to get rid of the 9. So I'm going to divide by 9, otherwise known as multiplying by 1/9. B to the 5th equals 3 over 2 times, well, I should just multiply it out. And I get 3 over 18. 3/18 reduces to 1/6. And I'm getting close. Almost done. Now I got to put the whole thing to the what? 1/5. So I have B is now 1/6 to the 1/5. Whew! Holy smokes. All right. Now what was my original equation? It was y equals a 10 on top, right? 1 plus, it's always 1 plus. And then it's AB to the x, and I just figured out, well, A I figured out before was 9. B I just figured out is 1/6 to the 1/5. I wrote it kind of sideways. I'm going to fix that. 1/5, and I need an x. Don't screw the whole problem up by forgetting the x. That's a really common mistake. And the x just goes in there. Now, I could just put it at the end like this, but if I do that, it's not as clean as if I actually multiply it out. I would have accepted that answer, but just put the x on top because that's where it would go, because it's really x over 1, right? So it's x over 5. There's your answer. It's an equation. Now, if they needed you to use the equation, that would be a really tough problem. Usually, though, we just ask you to find the equation. If you had to use the equation, they tell you, oh, by the way, and time is 5. Well, then you'd put a 5 in right here. That would turn into 5 over 5, which would be 1. Anything to the 1 power is itself. So that would be 1/6 times 9 would be 9/6. And you'd have to just add that all up. That'd be a pain. That'd be really painful. It's already a long enough problem. All right, let's do one of the problems off the worksheet. Yes? Calculators will be allowed for this part, yes.
And then could you multiply that out? Would you just
No, you would leave it exactly like it is. Okay, if you really want to multiply this out, watch what happens. You multiply that out, then you just instantly get it wrong, and I want you to understand why. I know you're not talking about that, but somebody else might be. If you multiplied this out, that'd be wrong. Why? Because this is an exponent, and exponents would have to be first. Now, okay, so is this going to like really make it a lot better if you put it to the 5th power, and then you can have a weird decimal answer. So you don't want to do that. You want to do it just the way I did it. You don't want to use the calculator. I know you think you do, but you're going to screw it up. All right, let's do one together. Number 1 off your worksheet. Number 1. Initial value 10. Limit to growth 40. Passing through 1, 20. Do I have 2 points? Yes. It's just that you may not see it that way. Okay, please stop doing that. All right. Number 1 has a starting point of 10. What does that mean? That's a point. That's a point. What comma what is it? That's 0, 10. So when they tell you the initial value is 10, you got to know in your head, oh, that means 0, 10. Because that's how at time 0 it would be 10. Get that? Okay. Now your first step then, well, that was the first step, is to change your starting value to 0, 10. Now, I would recommend you make just a little sketch of it. It's not real hard to do it. Just go like this. You know it has a limit of what now? No, it says it on the paper here. Number 1. Limit to growth is 40. That's 40. Okay, then it says it's passing through 1, 20. So another point here would be 1, 20. And this starting point is 0, 10. All right, there. I made my little sketch of what it kind of looks like. Is that what the problem wants us to do? No, it says find the logistic function. So we got to write the equation for this. So first step of writing the equation, y equals the limit to the growth on top, which is what? 40 over 1 plus ab to the x. And no, you can't just stick in a is 10. Hopefully you haven't already forgotten that. This 0, 10, we're going to stick in to the x and the y here. X is 0, y is 10. Rewrite it. You're going to need a lot of paper for these. 10 equals 40 over 1 plus a. And the nice part about this is that b to the 0 just drops out. Because b to the 0 is equal to 1. And 1 times a is a. Then you got to do some basic algebra. Go ahead, solve that puppy. Now this would be a little bit like what's going to happen next year. It's going to happen next year. It's almost like I gave you the problem on an iPad and there was no more near enough room to write the answer out. You probably would want to grab some side paper to do it on. Some of you write small enough you can actually make this work, but if you don't and you know that, you're kind of sloppy, it's okay. Take out a big piece of paper and do a separate problem on each piece of paper. It's okay. They grow trees now, really, to make paper. It's not like they're cutting down rainforest trees to make paper. They harvest them just like corn. It's true. The rainforest trees are getting cut down by the locals, not people making paper. Okay, so those are getting canceled, and now we have, I would not multiply it to 10 in here. I think it is a lot easier if you don't, because I'm going to try to get the a alone, and I can just divide by 10 right away, and that'll be a lot faster. 1 plus a equals 40 divided by 10 is 4. See, it's going to be way easier. If you had multiplied by 10, it would still work. Just saying it's easier if you don't. So I divided both sides by 10, and I got 1 plus a equals 4. Do you agree? A equals 3. Good. Now we go, and again, some of you might want to grab a notebook to start doing your homework on, because it may not have room. Y equals 40 over 1 plus a is 3 times b to the x. And now we start it all over again and put in the other point. The other point was 1 comma 20. So x is 1, y is 20. So it's 20 equals 40 over 1 plus 3b to the 1, which is just b. Then you got to clear the fraction. Multiply both sides by 1 plus 3b. Then you'll have to do some subtracting and dividing, and eventually you'll figure out what b is. And then you're done. Because this equation was right, except I didn't know what b was. As soon as you know what b is and you put it in there, you're done. You figured out the answer. So I'll let you finish that one, solve for b, and then stick it in your equation there, and you'll be done. That's how you do it. The most important thing you are learning on this worksheet is problems 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to leave all 4 of them in there. It's really good practice for you. It will probably need a separate sheet of paper unless you micro write. And I'm okay with that if you are okay with that. So, but make sure you show your work. All right. Now, the rest of the worksheet does get a little long, so I can throw out a few. Why don't we throw out 11 and 12. That'll save you a fair amount of work. Problems 11 and 12 are skips. Okay? Now, I am only handing out this next thing because some of you are the overachiever types who want to get ahead on your homework. You do have a weekend. And if you know your life is super busy and you have to be super focused to like get it all done, this is the review packet that I'm going to be would normally be giving out on Monday. Because the review for the test, you don't have to do any of it. But I'd recommend that you start on it because you got a lot to review. You know, it's got like a whole bunch of problems on here. 26 questions. Okay, and if you do save that all for Monday night, you're going to hate yourself later. Because you got a weekend right now and you can get like 10 of them done or something. So your call, you do what you want, but I'd recommend you get started on this review packet so that Monday won't be as painful. Okay, and I think this test is a chance. If you actually do all of this review and you actually practice, you actually look at the answer keys, you know, do it the way you're supposed to do it, you could pull off an A on this test, and a lot of you could use that right now because your first test of the semester was that cumulative test, and that was tough. Most of your grades are not where you want them to be. So don't miss an opportunity for some easy points here. You could get an A on this test if you try. Put in the time. It's way easier than your last test, but if you don't study for it, you might just get the B or the C, and then, you know, you missed an opportunity. Hand these back, George. I'll get one more for you. Just a second, please. Okay. The test has part with a calculator at least. I'm not certain how much of the test has a calculator, but there's at least part of the test that allows calculators. But this stuff you're doing right now on this worksheet, you should not be using a calculator for it. So like right now, today's homework, don't use the decimals and get... Hannah, you hearing this? It really is not... I believe that part of the test is not calculator allowed. I think the only part of the test, it might be the very last part. So anyway, bottom line is, don't use calculators. You're just going to lull yourself into false sense of security. Let me double check. Yep, no calculators. We're all keeping all the numbers nice and neat. Little numbers like, 1 and 2 and 5 are going to be used, nothing really nasty. So you're expected to leave your answers with the like 1/4 power and stuff in them. So don't use calculators. The only thing that allows a calculator is the R4. The R4 allows calcs. Okay, get to work. I know it's a Friday. I know you may not feel motivated, but this is the part in the next few days is where you earn your A. If you put your nose to the grindstone and try hard, you can get the A on this test. It's doable. Okay, that's all I got for the video.